Hi YouTube, my name is Jack, and today, in the very bright, direct sunlight that's coming in through the window, we're going to talk about my next book. I have a book that is coming out this July in the United States. I don't know when it releases in other countries. Usually it's a little bit later, usually it's a month or two later, but I have a book that is coming out this July in the United States, and I am so pumped about it. I just got the galley copy this week, so I finally have a physical copy of this book, and I am just delighted with how it turned out. I'm really excited about this book. I think there is a lot of fun stuff to be had in here. I think I do a couple of things that I haven't seen, even in similarly themed books. So let's talk a little bit about it. This book, as you can see, you know how to read, is called Tarot for the Magically Inclined. And the purpose of this book is to explore the intersection between tarot and magical practice. The book came out of a conversation that I had with Barbara Moore, who is a giant in the tarot world, but who's also the tarot editor at Llewellyn. And she and I were talking about sort of the books that I had written up to this point, how I had sort of the witchcraft books, and then I had the one tarot book, and we were talking about the possibility of exploring something that overlapped the two, and that looked at the ways that tarot influences my witchcraft practice, and then conversely, the way that my magic influences the way that I read tarot. And out of that conversation came the idea for this book, the outline for this book, and then eventually, obviously, the book itself. It's a really fun book. This is about the intersection between tarot and magic. It's divided into two main sections. So the first section is on magical correspondences, magical points of view that can influence the way we read tarot. And then the second half of the book is on using tarot in magical projects. So the first half is very, I think, standard information that you'll encounter if you're ever looking at tarot correspondences. I have one chapter that's just like, hey, what is tarot and how do we do it? Just to orient anyone who's new to that. I have another chapter that's the same thing for magic. Like, what is magic? When I talk about magic, what am I saying? What am I not saying? How is magic supposed to work? Just kind of, right, the fundamentals. And then the remainder of part one is looking at the key magical correspondences that you will typically find when people use correspondences in reading tarot. So we have elemental correspondences, we have astrological correspondences divided into the zodiac and the planets, and then we have Kabbalistic correspondences with the Tree of Life. And all of those, right, you can go further down with them. So I talk about how they appear in the major arcana and how they appear in the minor arcana and in the court cards, and not just because I think this is a problem that sometimes occurs when people talk about correspondences for tarot. I think people like to present table upon table of correspondences and then just kind of leave it at that and say, like, okay, the Magician corresponds to Mercury, and the Three of Swords corresponds to Saturn in the third decan of Libra. Third decan? Second decan of Libra. Oof, that's embarrassing. And they just sort of stop there. Like, they give you the correspondences, and they don't tell you anything about what to do with them. So it's really important for me, and was really important in writing this book, that when I present these correspondences, I talk a little bit about ways that they can actually be useful in a tarot reading. So you can use such and such correspondences as a technique to help predicting timing. Or, you can use Kabbalistic correspondences to pull out these kinds of themes in a reading that you might not have noticed before. Because the goal of magical correspondences in tarot is to help us read tarot. Like, just listing the correspondences, it doesn't do you any good when you are sitting at a table with a bunch of cards in front of you and you're trying to figure out what to make of them. So, I do list correspondences, I do explain what the correspondences are, but it's really important to me in this book that I also talk a little bit about what to do with the correspondences, how to bring those kinds of correspondences into your tarot readings. And you can see, like here, this is talking about using astrological correspondences to produce a tarot reading that is similar to a birth chart, and so on. So that's the first half of the book. The second half of the book is much more experimental. It's much more personal. It's about techniques for incorporating tarot into a magical practice, but they're all my techniques. Some of them are things that you will encounter in other texts, right? So there's a chapter on meditation and pathworking with the tarot. That's a pretty standard technique. You'll find that in a lot of places. But I really try to approach it through, like, how have I used tarot for meditation and pathworking? Here are my experiences. Here are some things that you can try. And, there's some stuff on meditation and pathworking. There's some stuff on doing a magical tarot reading where you sort of stack the deck so that you can ritually produce the result that you want in your tarot reading, which the ethics of that get murky, and I talk about that because there are obviously situations in which it would be deeply dishonest to stack the deck for a tarot reading. So if you're going to try to do that for magic, you have to be, I think, really careful and thoughtful about how and why you're doing it. But it can be a really effective magical technique. I also talk about using the cards themselves as magical objects, as talismans, to attract a particular kind of energy into your life. I talk about spell casting and using the symbolism of a particular tarot card or a set of tarot cards in order to devise the symbolic actions that go into a spell in order to produce a desired result. So, like, if you're doing a love spell to attract a particular kind of lover in your life, you might choose one of the court cards that represents the personality of the kind of person that you would like to see in your life, and then you build a spell around the symbolism of that particular card, which I think is a fabulous technique. There have been other books that talk about tarot and spellcasting, and they're also great. But this is very much my approach to it, the way that I've been doing it, really since I started practicing magic. Because for anyone who is new to this channel, who's unfamiliar, I got into magic and occultism through tarot. I started with tarot reading, and then that kind of opened up the door for a lot of Golden Dawn ritual texts and sort of exploring ceremonial magic, and then from there into witchcraft. So tarot has always been a really important part of my magical practice. Then, sort of toward the very end of this book, we get really, really experimental. These are some things that I've done that I have not seen a lot of other people talk about. So in particular, I talk about using tarot for magical work with angels and demons, particularly in the minor arcana of the deck. Each card in the minor arcana has 2 angels and 2 demons that are associated with it. Those are spirits who can be worked with in a magical context, who are sort of in tune with the particular theme of that given card, and you can call on them for magical aid in whatever your magical projects may be that are associated with that card. And that's cool. That's really, really cool. So just like as an example, the angel who's associated with the 7 of Wands is named Mahasya, one of the 2 angels. And if you want to do magic that's associated with the 7 of Wands, you can call on Mahasya to help you with that. You can call on Mahasya's magical aid and get sort of, a power boost from on high in order to achieve your magical results. Sorry, I just bumped the microphone. Hopefully that wasn't too loud. And this is something that I don't see people talking about in connection with tarot and magic. It's not to say that people don't do it, but like sometimes you will read books that have the correspondences listed and they'll be like, oh yes, the 7 of Wands, Mahasya, but they don't do anything with it. There's an angel there. Go talk to the angel. Ask the angel to help you do your magic. It's cool. It's fun. So there we have that with the minor arcana. We also have archangels who are associated with the major arcana. And these are magical spirits who can aid you in your work as a magician, as a witch, as whatever you are. And I think that's really fun. It's a different kind of magic. I draw a little bit on like some Solomonic grimoire techniques, but it's really very, very simplified. It's very pared down and filtered through tarot. So how can we use tarot techniques and symbolism and sort of magical ritual methods in order to communicate with these spirits and ask them for their intercessional aid in our work? That was a really fun chapter to write, and I think that's probably the most different and most unique thing about this book, because it's not something I've seen in other books. And the final chapter of the book talks about building magical relationships with the spirits of the major arcana themselves. So, you treat the star or the magician or the chariot as a spirit, and you form a relationship with that spirit. You may set up a shrine, you may make offerings, you may establish a line of communication with that spirit through divination or other methods. You may find a specific name that you call that spirit, and building a personal relationship with them the way that you would build a relationship with a spirit of the land or a deity or an ancestor and so on. And so really looking at methods for exploring building those magical relationships. That was the first kind of magic that I ever did. Again, because I started with reading tarot, and then that kind of led me down the path into paganism, ceremonial magic, witchcraft, and so on. So when I was, like 17 years old, living in a studio apartment in France with a weekly budget of 25 euros, that was the magic that I was doing, was establishing relationships with these spirits and trying to build a connection with the spirits that lie behind the major arcana. And that was a really fabulous and rewarding experience. It's something that I still do, although it's no longer the main magical relationship that I have, or the main set of magical relationships that I have. But I think it's a really beautiful and valuable way to engage with tarot in a magical context. And again, it's something that I don't see people talk about a whole hell of a lot. There are people who talk about that kind of thing. And I think it's become more common in the past 10 years or so. But, there's not as much about that out there as I would like for there to be. So there's a lot of magic in this book. And there's a lot of my personal magic, which is something that I haven't done a lot in my previous books. This is really kind of a cookbook that's based on my experiments, my trial and error, the things that have worked for me. And that's really exciting to be able to share. So I'm super excited about this book. I hope that you will be too. It's so fun and so different from really anything else that I've written. There are similarities. You can draw a through line with the things that I've written, but I think this fills in a gap in the books that I've written so far. And it's nice to see it out there in the world. Tarot for the Magically Inclined releases in July of 2025. I will put links down below that you can pre-order it. I'm sure you've heard this from me and from other authors before, but pre-orders really, really help a book. They're a really important way to boost sales, boost sort of the visibility of a book, because the more it gets pre-ordered, the more the algorithm on various online retailers will spit it out as a recommendation. So if you can, please go pre-order this. And then once you have it, do leave a review on Amazon and elsewhere. I can't overstate how much that helps. Thank you so much. I hope you're as excited about this book as I am, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.